In 1984, Robert Fritz released a book called The Path of Least Resistance. And it's a book all about motivation, essentially. It's one of those books where you have to read it the whole thing through and you're a little bit confused what was the point until you start absorbing the deeper concept and you realize how powerful it really is. And I'm going to show you the gist of this concept. It's a strategy for creating an internal structure in your mind that releases motivation naturally. So you use less willpower to generate this automatic tension, is what Robert Fritz calls it, like a natural tension that causes you to want to close the gap between where you are and where you want to get to. It's a simple concept, but one that you're probably not using to the best effect. It's one of those things that fits into the category of true, but so true and so well known that a lot of people just dismiss it. They ignore the power of something because it's not novel. Remember that most of the productivity gains that you can achieve, they're going to be things that people discovered long ago and have stood the test of time. It's not going to be the thing someone wrote a book about this year, right? So let's just look at this simple concept. We're going from point A to point B, right? This is our goal. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get more clarity about what the steps are on the way from point A to point B. And when you do this process, what happens is you start to create a natural internal tension. There's a part of you that begins to become more aware because you've gotten very specific about this process. You know that all that stands between where you are now and your goal over here is just these few steps. And so we want to start by doing kind of a zooming out. If you zoom out on a problem or on a goal and you just say, all right, here's the three big pieces. And then you can do another one where you get into some of the details for, let's say, just this one piece right here. And what happens when you do this is that your motivation starts to gradually build because this stuff becomes more clear in your mind. What you're doing is you're actually generating more clarity about the path. It's the path that matters, right? Point A, you know where you are right now. Point B, you know where you want to get to, but it does help to define this. And that's why with my clients, when we're working on productivity, we always start by getting very clear about the goal. Because if you have any indecision about where you're trying to get to, if you're thinking I could go this way or this way or this way, what tends to happen is you spin your wheels a lot, right? You have this internal civil war that prevents you from being effective in moving forward. So if you say, okay, I've made my choice, we've gone through that decision process, we say we may not be able to see the future perfectly and clearly, but one thing we do know is that if you don't choose something and start to work toward it, you're going to go slow for sure. And so we're going to purposely choose a destination, and then we're going to start to map out very clearly what the process looks like. And it's that process of mapping this out that creates the internal psychological tension. So there's this gap that you want to close because you start to see clearly, like, all I have to do are these few steps to get there. And so if we break that down, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of chunking. If you're feeling overwhelmed by a big task, if you break it down into small pieces and you say, I just have to do this first piece, it helps a lot to have this sense of, yeah, that's a meaningful progress. I can tackle that piece of it right now. Well, that's why we do this process of taking one piece and breaking it down even further and saying, okay, so what are the 3 or 4 steps to get that part done? So I would encourage you, if you haven't used this technique in a while, if you don't have someone working with you on maintaining the operational sort of overview, some people call it the integrator role. If you don't have an operations manager, someone in the integrator role for your company who's already doing this, or even if you do, but you haven't looked at it in a while, create this for yourself, whether it's a personal goal or for your business. Create that arc. Get really clear about what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And once you've gotten a lot of clarity about that, map out the process so that you increase that internal narrative tension. What Robert Fritz calls the path of least resistance is really about creating an internal narrative, an internal psychological structure to where it doesn't take effort. You don't have to try to make yourself pursue your goals. You just naturally want to finish them because now that you see, like, that's all that's stopping me, I could get to point B by just doing these things, you start to want to close that gap. So if you're not using this, here's your challenge for this week. Just take out a piece of paper and do this simple exercise. You'll be surprised how it increases your motivation. You can also start the day with this. You can make this a part of your daily startup routine to just say, right now, for this milestone that I'm working on for my overall trajectory in life or business with my goals, this is the piece I'm on right now. Here are the steps. I'll also drop a link in here for a planner that helps you to do this. It was created by my friend Dave Rule, who is actually, he's exited several businesses including e-commerce businesses. And so he knows what it's like. For those of you who are in similar business models, it works great for that, but it also works for a number of other scenarios. I'll drop a link in there, and you'll be able to use that if you need some sort of daily reminder to go through this process, to break down your goals into smaller and smaller pieces so that you can see clearly where you're going on the big picture, but you also have some of the smaller details as well. Talk to you again next week.